Welcome to another episode of the brand called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very celebrated cricket and sports coach, a well-recognized face around the world, an author from Cape Town, South Africa, Mr. Paddy Upton. Paddy, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks very much for the invitation. Look forward to the conversation with you.
Thank you. Paddy is a high-performance coach and a keynote speaker. He was instrumental in leading the Indian national cricket team to win the 2011 ICC Cricket World Cup. He has been the head coach of 5 different professional T20 cricket leagues teams in 13 tournaments across 3 of the world's major leagues like the IPL, the BBL, and the PSL. And he's an author of a book titled The Barefoot Coach: Life-Changing Insights from Coaching the World's Best Cricketers. So, Paddy, let me start by asking you a little bit about your own journey and what was your motivation to pursue a career in coaching?
Wow. I mean, once we have sort of balding, a little bit of gray hair like this, we've got a long a journey that we've walked. I guess for me, if I were to go back, probably the significant thing at university was my mindset of moving forward with my wings spread wide. That was my mantra. Moving forward means I'm going to take opportunities. I'm going to do things, say yes to things. Yeah. And wings spread wide was the concept of don't close myself and sort of set narrow goals. And I guess that mindset led me early on to get degrees from 4 different universities. And I wasn't particularly overly interested in any one of them. They didn't work. So I went and I did another one. I did a number of different sports. I got involved in different businesses. So for me, it was really just moving forward, accumulating. And it was really in sort of my early 30s when I came across my final master's degree, or my second master's, was in executive coaching or business coaching. And I found that was a place where all the different things I'd done up until then in my life all came together, and the light bulbs went on for me. And that was also the time sort of roundabout when the internet was reaching its tipping point. And the main thing that drew my interest was how the leadership stroke coaching terrain was changing from the pre-internet industrial age thinking, where the leader was the command and control, authoritarian, hierarchical, patriarchal type leadership style, to one where now intelligence no longer resided in one leader or one coach's head. It was now available to everybody with access to the World Wide Web. Correct. So helping leaders and coaches navigating that shift and really empowering people, whether it was from mental coaching, a business coaching, a sport coaching, that really grabbed me. And that's been largely my journey since.
Amazing. So, you coach, in the introduction, I said you've coached a lot of the cricketers across the world, but more recently I was reading that you also were a coach at the Paris Olympics. So
yes, so
I wanted to ask you, what are some of the common challenges athletes, and I'm including cricketers as athletes, face that could hinder their performance that you work on?
So, on that, I've worked now as a mental coach, is one of the caps I've worn for the last 20 years. And recently with taking boxing and chess, I've now worked in 19 different sports at pretty much the highest level. So seen a great variety from team to individual sports, combat sports like boxing to chess, team sports, individual. The principles of getting things right, the principles of success, the principles of the mental game are universal across all sports. And the reason they're universal across all sports, because the principles of success in life is universal to life. There's nothing new. The real challenge, I guess, is for each individual in different sports and for different people to translate the things that these universal wisdoms, the keys to success, to translate that into someone's sport, depending on their sport, their level of experience, their personality style, their learning style. But at the end of the road, things like there is no shortcut around preparation. Just a very simple example. If we reduce it to writing an exam, everyone's written an exam before. if you study the whole book for the exam, you go in mentally in a good space, you have confidence, there's a certain amount of trust, and you feel in a good space. Compared to if you go into an exam having only studied a few of the chapters, you go in with doubt, you go in with some anxiety, you go in with hope. You cannot go in with confidence. And that's probably one of the single most important things that people, they rush too much to go, I need to get my mind right. No, first get your preparation right. And when you lay the foundations and you arrive at whatever's important to you, well prepared, your mind, 80% of the distractions that normally happen that athletes bring to me, those are all just disappear because you've prepared well.
Correct. And what role does mindset play in high performance sports? And how do you cultivate a strong mindset in your coachees?
So as I said, the first piece is study the whole book for the exam.
Correct.
Because I look at the mind as almost the sharp end of the arrow. Yes, I can do some work helping people sharpen their mind for that key moment of performance. But if the arrow is shot from, the bow isn't right, or the bow string breaks, or the arrow is the wrong direction, or it doesn't travel, there's no point in sharpening the arrow if the arrow doesn't arrive at the target near the bullseye. So the mindset is very important. And I guess, what do athletes need to do in order to give themselves the best chance of executing at the highest level of their skill? And that is to be fully focused on the task at hand and what is required of me right now and the very next step. And in order to be fully present and focused on the task at hand, the main thing in order to that facilitates that is to remove the distractions or not fall into all the distractions and the noise that's out there. And that's a lot of what mental coaching is a combination of helping people find the right focus. And in order to do that, what are the things that distract you? And there's some very common distractions across all sports. And again, it's similar to the distractions that we all get caught up in life.
Great response. The other aspect, and I love your example of, read the whole book, but even after reading the whole book, when I'm out on center stage, there could be a lot of self-doubt or mental blocks.
Yes.
How do you help an individual who's read the whole book, but is now not able to deliver?
So that's very, very common. Everyone does suffer some form of performance anxiety or stress or fear or self-doubt, etc. Those are perfectly normal. I've never worked with any athlete in my life, even the best in the world, who doesn't have some amount of doubt, insecurity, negativity, negative thoughts. So that's perfectly normal. It's not about getting rid of those things. It's about recognizing those things, fading that noise into the background noise and being able to focus on the task at hand. And if I had to get really practical, the most common distractions that pull us away from what we need to be doing, from focus on the task at hand, is either two things that happened in the past, something good that's happened in the past, or something bad that's happened in the past that we can't let go of. If we can't let go of something good that's happened in the past, it tends to lead to mistakes of complacency, of overconfidence, of arrogance. When we can't let go of something that's gone wrong in the past and we ruminate on that, it leaves us feeling doubtful. It undermines our confidence. We question, will I be able to do it? Because last time I failed, am I going to fail again? So it's attachment to things that have gone well or badly in the past distracts us. And exactly the same way, we get probably more athletes are distracted, and more people today are distracted more about future thoughts. And again, there's only two things in the future that distract us. It's either success, too desperate for success, chasing success, can't let go of the thought about success in the future. That's the home of pressure. In fact, that's the anatomy of pressure. It's the amount of importance we place on results in the future. Or we are ruminating about something going wrong in the future. And that's the home of fear, stress, and anxiety, worrying about something going wrong, worry about what will people think, what will they say about me? If I make a mistake, how's that going to work? And I'm supposed to be, whether it's delivering a talk or hitting a cricket ball or kicking a ball or running a race, if I'm worried about what happened in the past, or thinking about what's going to happen when I cross the finish line first, or what happens if I don't cross the finish line first, those things just distract us from focusing on the present moment. And that is universal to every single human being. We live too much of our lives in the past or the future.
What a great response. Thank you. But the other aspect that I've been thinking about, Paddy, is that you have coached teams in team sports. You've coached individuals. And the level at which you're coaching, number one, they're very diverse personalities, but there are a lot of superstars as well. How do you approach handling athletes with diverse personalities and backgrounds?
I guess there's nothing like experience. When I started working in different cultures, and probably the main shift happened in 2008 when I moved with Gary Kirsten to work with the Indian national cricket team with names like Tendulkar, Ganguly, Dravid, Laxman, Harbhajan, Dhoni, Kohli. The learning curve was massively steep. I needed to learn. I didn't know these guys. I didn't know the Indian culture very well. So the only way to really learn is to shut your mouth, open your eyes, open your ears, and be an absolute sponge to learn. And the way to understand people is to ask questions, not make assumptions. So it was the experience of really listening, really learning, being hungry to understand, and being humble enough to know that we will never understand other cultures, other people. We can keep increasing our understanding, but we will never know.
Very interesting.
So, and again, it's whether it's different cultures or different sports. Again, there are really universal principles, and I'll give you a very simple one. People talk about individual sport and team sports. Team sports, people often say it's about the team and focus on the team and the team first and subvert yourself to the team. That's nonsense. That doesn't happen. Humans don't work like that. Everyone has a level of selfishness in them. That's perfectly normal. That's okay. So when I work with a team sport or an individual sport, I start off saying, what do you want? Be selfish and look at what do you want to get out of your period in this team or in the sport or in the season, and work out your individual goals and what are you going to do to accomplish your individual goals. If you happen to be in a team sport, there's a second conversation that happens alongside that, no less or no more important. What do we want to achieve as a collective? Let's look at that. Let's discuss it. Let's plot that. And then there's the conversation. Then let's put them side by side and look at what do you want to achieve? What does the team want to achieve? And where there's a clash, which sometimes there might be. So practically in T20 cricket, that happens. You might be a cricketer who wants to score 500 runs, a batsman wants to score 500 runs in an IPL season. The team wants to play high-risk cricket and really move the game on, which means you need to potentially sacrifice your wicket, and that works against the goal of scoring 500 runs, because to score 500 runs, I need to bat more conservatively and for longer. Now, I would say to the individual, there will always be clashes, and it's the same in the workplace. What you want and what your business wants sometimes don't line up. And it's how we manage ourselves around those conflicts between what I want and what the team or the business wants. It's in that space that our character is actually revealed. And the selfish individual might succeed in that season and score his 500 runs, for example, or might get all the sales because they don't share leads with their team members, for example. They will succeed in that one season, but their character is revealed. And more today, we're recognizing, sports teams are recognizing that we want people who are high-performing team players. So it's a combination of individual and team.
What an amazing explanation. Thank you. I want to now talk a little bit about cricket. And, you led the coaching for the Indian national cricket team in the 2011 ICC Cricket World Cup, which is a major win for India. How has been your experience in handling pressure? And they always say people, the cricketers themselves, of course, have under pressure, but the entire support team is under even greater pressure. How do you handle the pressure of not just coaching the Indian team, but coaching high pressure IPL teams as well?
So my answer is normally to this is there is no pressure.
Okay.
Or if there is pressure, I choose to put that pressure on myself. Pressure it's a mental construct or mental thing that we create for ourselves in our own mind. And I mentioned it earlier and I'll say it again. So where does pressure come from? It comes from, in my own mind, the amount of importance I place on achieving a result at some time in the future. So yes, a World Cup final is massive pressure because the consequence of winning is massive. And people think about the consequence of winning. If I were to break it down to a very practical thing that happens in cricket, you get a batsman who bats for 1 or 2 or 3 hours and gets the score of 98 and 99. They're batting beautifully, and all of a sudden they get tentative, they get nervous, they get into the nervous 90s. Why? Because I've been batting for 3 hours. I'm seeing the ball the size of a watermelon, but all of a sudden I'm seeing one more run time. I'm on 100, and it's a really big thing. Correct. So now I'm looking at the 100 as opposed to looking at the ball that's coming to me. And that's what creates pressure. So for me, when I feel pressure, I know I've gone, for me personally, it tells me, firstly, I've gone into my ego because I'm looking at a result, and my ego as a coach I want the team to do well because then I look good. People think I'm a good coach. So it's really important to win big games.
Yeah.
So as soon as I feel pressure, I'm in my ego. And when I'm in my ego, I'm making it about me. So straight away, that's my red flag. And I say, right, let's look at the team. If I'm feeling pressure, what about the players? What might they be feeling? And again, it's just a signal. When I feel pressure, it means my mind has gone into the future. Because if I'm fully focused on the present moment and what's happening in front of me, it is impossible to feel fear when you are present. You can only feel fear when you are here now and your mind is in the future. So that's just a sign that I'm succumbing to a mental obstacle to success.
Very well said. And when it comes to the IPL, I've often said that an IPL team is a great leveler for everyone, because on the one side, you've got some major stars. On the other side, there are people who are making their debut. Yes. From a coach perspective, what is your approach to working with big name players and debutantes?
So I guess an IPL team's not different to some business teams, where in the 8 IPL teams, there's 11 players and a squad of 25 to 28 people. Each team has probably got an average of about 3 superstars, 3 really big names. Yep. Over the course of a 14-match season, those superstars, 3 superstars in each team, their performances are probably going to cancel each other out, or they're going to match each other. The teams that win very often are either their 3 superstars are just much better than the 3 superstars in the other 7 teams. Then you're not going to touch that team. Correct. But more often, it's actually the other 6 or 7 players, those less experienced players. That's what I call the rest. It's, can you get the rest of those players, where in most IPL teams, let's say they're delivering at 60, 70% of, at what an elite performer will. Can I get an extra 10% out of those 7 players? Can I make them, help them be more comfortable, feel more psychologically safe, have less fear of failure, be more comfortable to fully express themselves, bring their talents to the party? And very often success actually comes down to, we all look at the superstars and we celebrate the superstars, and yes, they hit the big sixes and they get the big clients. But the majority of teams, the majority of businesses are made up of the majority of people are those mid-level performers. And that's where leadership, that's where culture can really create the environment where you get an extra 5 or 10% out of that, the masses that your opponents are not getting. So they are so important, how you work with the less experienced players. And one of the key role players in that is, how well do the senior players, those superstars, are they engaging the youngsters? Are they creating psychological safety? Are they getting the best out of them? Are they passing their knowledge over? So are the superstars bringing the youngsters up, or they're acting like prima donnas, which tends to suppress and create fear of failure in the youngsters? So as senior players are part of the leadership. The superstars, we need superstars who are contributors, which means bringing up.
Absolutely. So I'm going to move to, out of cricket and ask you some other questions. How does coaching a cricketer, which is a team sport, differ from coaching an Olympic athlete in a non-team sport?
Olympic athletes in non-team sports, individual sports, at the highest level, even an individual athlete has a whole team around them. They've all got a coach, they've got a trainer, they've got a physio, they've got a media manager, maybe they've got an agent. So actually all athletes have teams around them now. And again, the distractions across team and individual sports are the same. It's just, it's tailoring the coaching approach to that individual's personality style, their preferences, and the requirements of their sport at that time. And as I said, there are no secrets out there. There's nothing that's unique to one sport or one individual. The only unique thing is that every one of us is unique. And so really good coaching, one of the things that's required is to constantly be tailoring your approach to be most relevant to that individual within that context at that time of their career. So from a coach or leadership perspective, the more we can tailor our approach and pay attention to who we're working with and change that to the individual, as opposed to the old model where this is how I lead, this is how I coach, this is my way, and you fit in with my way. That's a very narrow band, which you will achieve success only with the narrow band of athletes or individuals who happen to fall into that have a preference for that way. So we need to be as, diverse and as open as possible to adapting our style as leadership and coaching, and then we'll be maximally effective with a broader range of athletes and people.
And as a coach, from your perspective, managing different types of athletes and managing their physical and mental demands are very, very different in different sports. How do you make the adjustment to so many different kinds of demands on your time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So as a coach, I see myself as an instrument of leadership. I heard that analogy a long time ago, and it just resonated with me. And any musician who steps up to play on a stage, the first thing they do is they spend time fine-tuning the instrument. And I make sure that I really pay attention to fine-tuning myself. So the things that for me are really important and not negotiable is having great sleep. That's probably the single most important thing to set up ourselves up for success. I make sure I charge my energy and I'm filled with as much energy as possible. And how do we do that on top of sleep is nutrition. I make sure I eat well, and I make sure I do regular exercise so that I can be in the best possible space to be able to be there for other people, to give of myself, give my time, give my energy. And particularly I find if I'm sleeping well, eating well, and exercising, and I'm in a good space, life always and sport always throws us curveballs. We go through real difficulties and tough times. And if we're not in a good space ourselves, we don't have energy, we don't have our emotional intelligence, we haven't had good sleep, we haven't done exercise, and you meet a difficult time, it becomes very difficult to remain stable and navigate the difficult times. So easy times are easy to navigate. And when teams win and we're having success, that's very, very easy to operate in that environment. I make sure I prepare myself for the real difficult times. I'm in the best possible space so that I can help myself and other people navigate the inevitable difficult times with as much ease as possible. So anybody in a high performance environment, anybody who wants to be successful in whatever you do, if you're not eating well, sleeping well, and exercising, you're already shooting yourself in the foot. And then there's no point. You spoke earlier about then going to try and get a mental coach to help my mind to be in the best possible space. No, first get the basics right, and then we can start building on that.
Well said. I have time for two more questions for you, Paddy. Are there any particular mental strategies that work universally across all sports?
Are there any? That's a great question. Yes. The mental strategy of asking a question, listening to the answer, and then delivering on the answer that's provided. And I guess that's not just relevant in sports. If you've got children, rather than telling them all the time, ask questions, understand why they do things, what they want, listen to the answer and provide. Same as a business leader. So yes, it's the process of, and it's a real skill to ask a really good and relevant question, relevant for the other person, not relevant for me, to really listen to the answer to listen to what they're not saying, and then to help somebody navigate their own life, as opposed to too often, and particularly the old school leaders, we think we know what's best for the other person. Too many coaches think they're the expert and they know what the athlete should be doing. Too many parents think they're the expert in their kids' lives. Too many bosses think they're the expert in their employees' lives. And we thinking that causes us to not learn, to not ask good questions, or to not really pay attention to the answer. So yes, that works for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And you're so right. I mean, sports or business leaders, the thoughts are exactly the same. And my last question to you, Paddy, and I come back to cricket again. What has, and cricket in India, I'm sure you've heard this many times, is a religion.
Yeah.
What have been some of the most rewarding aspects from your perspective of coaching the Indian team, of coaching IPL teams, and how does it compare, and this may be an unfair question, with other formats and leagues?
The obvious highlights is, winning a World Cup is incredible.
Correct.
We've, was fortunate to be part of the Indian team when we became the #1 test team in the world for India's first time. That's obvious, those celebrations. But when you said it to me, it's the small things. It's when a player acknowledges, I remember leg spinner Amit Mishra scoring his first test 50 as a #8 or #9 batsman, coming off the field, celebrating. And he came to me and he said a real sincere thank you for the contribution that I made towards helping him get there. So that's a non-celebrate, that's the behind the scenes. And every now and again, when a player comes and just acknowledges the input, because support staff, we are support, we perform our roles from in the wings. It's not about being on center stage and getting acknowledgement. And it is nice from time to time when a player acknowledges that, and sometime last year, was very generous. Virat, Kohli, he had gone through that long period of not scoring runs, and him and I spent a lot of time together, and he publicly spoke about, the work that I'd done in turning that around. And that happens. I do a lot of work where players seem to have a turnaround, but it's only every now and again when someone turns around and says thank you. And I don't do that for the thank you, but it's very nice when that happens.
Amazing. Paddy, on that note, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me about your own journey. I think we covered a lot of ground on challenges athletes, cricketers face. Everything that you've spoken about coaching athletes or cricketers is as relevant to them as it is to every single individual, irrespective of which field of life they may be pursuing their dreams in. And I'm sure you've heard what I'm going to say now. The guru in India is always on a pedestal. Everyone, irrespective of which field we are in, always look up to the guru. You are the guru who has given such amazing guidance to so many thousands of people, not just in the sports arena and high performance courts, but through you to so many other people who are watching all these sports. Thank you for everything you're doing, Paddy. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much for those very kind words. Lovely to be here. And I hope, thanks for the audience for listening, and hopefully there's something to take away and apply into your life.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website, www.tbcy.in, to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.